Perhaps earlier in the semester you've been thinking to yourself, why am I learning about letters and why am I learning about memos when so much communication in the workplace today is done by email? Well, first of all, the things that you practiced in writing letters and in writing memos apply to writing emails as well. Being concise, being specific, using a professional tone, addressing your audience with the information your audience needs, those all apply regardless of the physical format your communication requires. But today we are going to focus specifically on email. And one of the biggest mistakes people make with email is they think of it as sort of as a long version of a text message. Nothing could be farther from the truth, really. Generally speaking, an email is the electronic version of a memo, which is why emails physically actually resemble memos quite a bit. We know our emails have a to-line, a from line, a subject line, and a date line. That's right out of memo format because that's where email arose from. And so tone-wise, I think a lot of times if we imagine ourselves writing a memo, we'll be in the right place with our information and our tone for an email. There are some basic components in a business email. So there's a header section, and usually our computers populate some of that automatically. Certainly it populates our from line as the sender, and it populates the date, but we have to provide the recipient's email address, and we have to provide a subject line. And just as with memos, a specific subject line will help a person distinguish your email from all of the other clutter in their inbox and help them know how they need to act on your email and perhaps when they need to respond to it. So a specific subject line is vital to a business email. Whereas a memo typically did not have a salutation, emails often do. They don't always. It kind of depends on the situation and how friendly you are with the email. It also often depends on where in a chain of communication the email is. An initial business email is more likely to have a salutation, and especially a formal salutation. But if you go back and forth with someone, you'll find often the salutation diminishes or finally vanishes altogether because you're sort of in this give and take. It is, however, common to use a salutation, a dear so-and-so or a hello so-and-so as part of a business email. There's the text of the email's body. That's the information that you're generally conveying. And an email, like a memo, tends to be brief. It also, though, should be paragraphed appropriately into readable chunks by topic. There's a closing to many emails. There's often a regards or, sincerely. Not always. Again, that can be kind of like the salutation. You might be more likely to have that in an early email to a stranger. At the end of an email chain, you might be less likely to see it, but it's not uncommon. And then you have, typically in a workplace email, a signature block. Something where you have your name, your phone number, the business affiliation that you have, maybe your role in that business, and you program that into your business email system, and it appends that to every email that you produce, so you don't have to type your name again. It's just important to remember that if you use a signature block, that it's professional. So if you're in your workplace, that's generally not where you're going to have scriptural verses or song lyrics or funny quotes from your favorite movie. Generally speaking, you just want to keep it to factual content information. Okay, so I already talked about most of this stuff here. Make sure you are selecting the correct recipient. Don't spam people. That's not good. Make sure you're not hitting reply all when you just need to reply to one person. So do be careful and selective with whom your email is going. And then, as I said, a clear, specific, and professional subject line is important. You might sometimes need to CC people. who are secondary audiences, like maybe you're writing a letter to a coworker, but you're CCing your supervisor, so your supervisor's in the loop as well. Sometimes you BCC people when you don't want the recipient of the email to know that you have copied someone else. In the workplace, that's less likely to be necessary because often you actually want people to see that you are being responsible and CCing relevant and affected parties. You want people to know that the supervisor's in on this email chain, whatever it may be. But on occasion, you'll use a BCC. That's also a way to send emails out so that people can't reply back to other people when you don't want them to. And as I said before, watch about spamming, watch the dreaded reply all.
And now for some general tips related to the composition of emails. As we've said before, it's very important to use a specific subject line. That will help your email recipient be able to act on your email promptly. You'll want to use a polite and professional tone, and you'll want to be concise and be sure to be direct and get to the point quickly in your writing. Organizing your information into logical paragraphs will aid in accessibility. It will really help, again, the reader to find information quickly, as will using design features such as section headings. Essentially, all the tips we applied in memo composition work as well for email composition. Now, this is a video that is embedded below in Blackboard Learn here in the folder where you can see another person's take on how to write an email that will be sure to get you a quick response. So check that out. Now some general email editing tips. Make sure you use a standard typeface, nothing too exotic, nothing overly colorful. You don't want to make this look unprofessional. You want to make it look very professional and very simple. Your tone also will need to be professional. And part of the way you'll also increase your professionalism is to avoid pitfalls of text messaging and other kinds of internet messaging, Twitter messaging. So you don't want to use things that would be unprofessional because they don't belong in a professional communication. An email's like a memo. It's not like a text message. So compose your information accordingly. Along those same lines, you'll want to use standard capitalization and punctuation, as well as to proofread your email closely. Again, this is like a memo and not like a text message or a post on Twitter. Now, this little slide is an example of someone's email to another professional that is not as professional as it should have been. So a few things you'll notice about this message is that it's using a non-standard typeface. It's got a very casual greeting. It's not capitalizing things appropriately. It's using internet acronym LMAO. Now you might say, who would be silly enough as to use LMAO? I've seen that in emails. I've seen people write LOL. I've seen people actually write UR for your. These are things I've seen in emails students have sent me. So maybe not so much the less than 3 with the heart from a student email, but all of these other things I've seen in student emails, and worse. I mean, sometimes I see just one long thing with no sentences. So this obviously is not professional. So let's do a little editing on this and see if we can improve it. Okay, now this version uses a more standard typeface. It is capitalizing words appropriately. It's definitely much more effective than the original message, but it's still got some problems. It's still overusing exclamation points. It's still saying hey to start the message. It just has a very casual approach to it. On occasion, this might be appropriate if this was someone that was a very close colleague and actually a friend outside of work. Maybe this might be appropriate. But if you're emailing someone else, Definitely not. So what could we do to edit this further? All right, so this message is definitely more professional. It's paragraphed. It uses a signature block on the bottom, so now we know who Stacy is. It uses an appropriate salutation with just the recipient's name. It uses boldface for the action items. So this is what we would expect to see in a more professional email. So this week, as you know, you're going to be creating a document that is formatted and presented as an email. Remember, you are writing a word process document, not actually sending me an email. But you're going to take that form and you're going to want to apply these tips from this video in the composition of your quote-unquote email. Also, don't forget you can refer to the textbook discussion on emails. There's actually 2 sample definitions emails that you can take a look at. Also, I'll point you to another resource in Blackboard Learn here that's not specific to the assignment but is about emails generally. There's a very good article about business emails that I definitely recommend that you take a look at as well. And for next class, you'll be happy to note that you have a very short reading assignment. This is a portion from the chapter on letters and memos, and it's just a 3-page segment on a specific kind of letter called claim letters. So you will want to be sure to read that even if you previously read the chapter on letters. You'll want to focus on this particular element. Also, in reference to our upcoming assignment, don't forget that there is a technical definitions exercise that you can also work on to get a sense of how you can make appropriate definitions. That exercise and the answers to that exercise are posted in this folder in Blackboard Learn. So you've got a lot of resources for this week's assignment. But of course, if you have any questions about anything, especially anything pertaining to the upcoming assignment, don't hesitate to post to the questions forum here in Blackboard Learn. Catch you next time.